Okay, guys, so next up we have identifying and eliminating triggers. Now, despite working on your mindset, despite, a lot of these things are internal, okay? And something I want to preach to people, to my God, to everyone in the community, is that you cannot outsource self-control, right? You cannot get self-control from outside of yourself. So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to quit porn, I want to quit masturbation. I'm going to put a blocker on my phone and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it's like, okay, that's great, but like, what happens when there isn't a blocker? Do you know what I mean? You can't outsource self-control. It can only be acquired within you. That's why it's called self-control, right? Um, and that's the thing you have to understand, okay? But there is a caveat. You know, this phase of mindset is phase one, and phase one is all to do with momentum, right? So we're trying to build up as much momentum as possible. If you think of a plane on a runway, okay, that plane needs a clear runway. All right, it can't have debris all over the runway. It needs a clear path so that it can generate enough force without anything obstructing it, so that it can then take off. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do with eliminating triggers and identifying triggers, right? You're trying to remove as much things as possible that is going to slow down you building up that momentum, okay? So that's what we're going to be diving into here. And ultimately, you want to be at a point where even if a trigger was put in front of you, it wouldn't affect you, because you've got to a certain level of consciousness where you don't need to watch porn and masturbate, right? And that's the difference. That's what I feel like the difference was what I offer with my clients is we're having a deeper level transformation, okay? But let's dive into this. So if you cannot you cannot outsource self-control. Ultimately, we want to arrive at a point where we no longer are affected by triggers. As I said, we must clear the runway of debris so we can build up as much momentum as possible. Your environment is stronger than willpower, okay? So changing your environment is more effective than willpower just by itself. Eliminating triggers, visual cues, Instagram, social media, environmental triggers, right? Any form of trigger, you will know what that is for you, right? You're gonna know if, oh, I wake up and I go on my phone and, oh, I look at a picture of a girl and, oh shit, then I just relapse. Or if it's, oh, I go on Instagram and there's a bunch of sexual videos, like, or if it's, whatever it may be for you, or if it's at night, you go on your phone. Okay, cool. You can put your phone in, for example, you can put your phone in a separate room at night. So one thing I recommend a lot of guys do, especially early on this journey, is because the thing is, if you're prone to relapse, if you put your phone in a separate room, you can get yourself like an alarm clock, like a digital one, like an ana or whatever they're called, right? A battery powered one. So it has no ability to access pornographic material. And you use that to wake up every single day. Or you could use an Apple Watch, right? But what you're doing is you're putting your phone in a separate room. So when you wake up, you physically can't pull things up, right? Again, it's just making it easier for yourself. You're removing these triggers. And it's going to allow you to get up, and you're not going to go on your phone first thing in the morning. You're not going to doom scroll whilst in bed. You're going to get up. You're going to start moving around, doing stuff, right? This is going to be really powerful as an example, right? You need to adjust your Instagram algorithm. So one thing you can do is when posts come up, you're scrolling through Instagram, you see a post of a girl, a naked woman, something that can be a trigger for you. You just need to hit the three dots. You need to hit not interested. And you just need to keep doing that. You need to start teaching and telling your algorithm to stop showing you in your feed content like that, right? Use your brain. Think about it. If you're going on X and you're seeing a bunch of porn, delete X, or do what you need to do, right? You guys are mature adults. You can figure this out. But ultimately, you're trying to remove as many triggers as possible, right? This isn't like, we don't want to be extreme and neurotic about it, where we want to recognize that we're just trying to get as many things out. You're out of sight, out of mind. It's like if you're trying to eat a healthy diet, you don't want a bunch of chocolate cake and a bunch of crappy junk food around you. You just want healthy food around you. It's going to make it a lot easier to stay on course, right? Become conscious of everything that is a trigger to you, okay? And do what you can to eliminate it. Just spend some time meditating on it. Okay, what is a trigger? And a trigger doesn't always have to be like going on Instagram. It could just be, oh, every time I come back from football training, I go on my phone. Like, you need to think about that. Okay, that's an environmental trigger, Or for example, like one thing I do, well, I don't do this, but like one thing you can do is move your bed. I think this is a good idea. Just switching the direction of your bed. It almost changes your relationship with, watching porn and masturbating when you're in those scenarios. There's a very fascinating study they did It's from the book The Winner Effect, where in the Vietnam War, right, in the 1960s, obviously all the soldiers were out there in Vietnam and they were doing heroin, right, and do other high class drugs. And the American government were terrified that as soon as these soldiers came back, that there was going to be an epidemic of drug addicts, right, in the US. And what happened was when the American soldiers came back to the US, they didn't touch the drugs, right? They never touched the drugs. And it's because their environment was what was causing them to do that thing, right? When they were in Vietnam, that was what they were doing. They were doing heroin. But as soon as they came back to the US, it was like their identity changed with it. So you can actually leverage that yourself. You can leverage that by changing your environment, changing the room you sleep in, changing this, because there's going to be neurological patterns that you created over time that you're gonna feel the urge to go and watch porn and masturbate because you always do it at this time when you sit on this chair. Change some stuff around, and that can really work. But you have to be creative with this. You have to take on board what I'm saying. But ultimately, your environment is stronger than your willpower, right? If you surround yourself with a bunch of bodybuilders, it's going to be a lot easier to hit the gym, right? If you surround yourself with a bunch of drug addicts, it's going to be a lot easier to turn into a drug addict, right? Because environment overpowers willpower. Okay, so in terms of triggers, you want to eliminate as many triggers as possible, whatever they are for you. The majority of it's going to be from social media. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, like, oh, you don't want to search up something on your phone. Well, this is what you cannot outsource self-control. So we're just trying to remove as much debris off the runway as possible whilst we're building that momentum and taking us into that next phase of this journey.